With a look at the stories making the headlines now this Friday night, it's the ITV News at 10.
A Team GB breakthrough as the winning women lead the final push for medals in Tokyo. After a few setbacks, we've jumped back to 4th place as Laura Kenny shines, becoming the first British woman to take gold at 3 successive Olympics.
It's almost hard to say, but I felt relieved because the one race I really wanted to do was coming, and all of a sudden we went and did it.
Also in News at 10 tonight. COVID turns a corner with a sharp fall in infections for most of the UK as 16-year-olds are offered jabs. But the picture couldn't be more different in the US, with President Biden calling it the pandemic of the unvaccinated, with the southern states fast losing the battle with vaccine skepticism.
There's so much different levels of this vaccine that we really don't know still, and I would rather not be a guinea pig.
Could 500,000 people be pushed into poverty as energy companies hike up prices? And we meet Da Vinci G, the robot treating cancer and saving lives in a UK first.
This is ITV News at 10 with Charlene White.
Good evening. As she took a breathtaking victory today, cyclist Laura Kenny joined an elite group of British Olympians. Not only does she now have 5 gold medals to her name, but she's the first woman to win gold in 3 consecutive games. Riding alongside teammate Katie Archibald, they came through the madness of the Madison to claim the ultimate prize on a day when the women of Team GB carried them into 4th place in the medal table. Their success was followed by glory for Katie French, who left the competition for dust in the modern pentathlon, and it didn't stop there. 5 more medals came our way on the hockey pitch, at the velodrome and inside the Olympic Stadium.
Laura Kenny, the queen of the track and the first British female Olympian to strike gold at 3 successive games.
An Olympic title-winning effort.
Her pairing with Katie Archibald today, untouchable.
An unprecedented 5th gold medal for...
The Madison is a chaotic relay full of intermittent sprints. Because of the traffic, spectacular crashes. But the British duo just powered through the mayhem, dominating throughout on their way to cycling history.
Start to finish.
I love the team pursuit, but it was giving me fears like I've never had before. Whereas once that was out of the way, it's almost hard to say, but I felt relieved because the one race I really wanted to do was coming, and all of a sudden we went and did it.
While new sports may have caught the eye in Tokyo, the modern pentathlon was first introduced in 1912. A combination of swimming, fencing, show jumping on a horse selected at random, and then finally the run and shoot. Britain's Kate French showing the rest of the field a clean pair of heels for gold.
Olympic champion here in Tokyo 2020.
I can't believe I've done it. Yeah, I'm just so thrilled right now. It hasn't quite sunk in just yet.
Laura Muir's decision to concentrate solely on the 1500 metres for these games paid off tonight. In the run of her life, she smashed her personal best and finished with silver.
But Laura Muir!
A more popular medal in Team GB's athletics team might be hard to come by. Britain's women kept the success in the Olympic Stadium ticking along. Dina Asher-Smith's injured hamstring held strong, and Daryl Neater chased down the Jamaicans and American sprint teams for the last place on the podium. They were followed by the men who came agonisingly close to nailing a golden run. Nathaniel Mitchell-Blake began the anchor leg in front, but was just edged out on the line by Italy. He was not an easy man to console as it all started to sink in. But at last, there was something for GB's athletics team to celebrate together. So it has certainly been a day when Britain's women have taken centre stage, and one in particular, Laura Kenny, who, with a medal in her final race on Sunday, will make history all over again. Steve Scott, News at 10, Tokyo.
Well, as I mentioned, today's medal haul means Team GB are in fourth as we enter the final weekend with 18 gold, 20 silver and 20 bronze, a total of 58 in all. Back here, and ever since England's COVID restrictions were lifted last month, a close watch has been kept for signs it might spark a sharp rise in cases. Today, we got reason to hope those predictions may not come true. England's R rate is down sharply, suggesting the pandemic is shrinking. And it appears that across almost the entire UK, infections are in decline. Whether they stay that way will be part down to the vaccines, which are now available for all 16 and 17-year-olds.
Signs of normal Friday night life returning this evening, and 2 weeks since the government lifted restrictions in England. Encouraging data. The R rate has fallen to between 0.8 and 1.1, meaning for the first time since April, the outbreak might be shrinking. Has the government's gamble paid off? It's probably still too early to say.
We do have to look forward to September. August is always a slightly strange month when schools are obviously closed, people are on holiday and not mixing in the same way. As we move into the autumn, people tend to mix indoors a little bit more. Children go back to school, of course, and that might increase mixing. So I think I'd be much more confident if we get to September and we start to see things going down, continue to go down. But certainly at the moment, I think we're in quite a good place.
The most reliable survey of infection rates around the UK suggests that 1 in 75 people in England had COVID-19 in the week ending July the 31st, down from 1 in 65 the week before. Northern Ireland is the only home nation where the infection rate is on the rise, with 1 in 55 estimated to have had COVID at that time. In Scotland, it was down to around 1 in 120 people. In Wales, 1 in 230.
For the first time since the pandemic began, all business will be able to open.
The First Minister announced that Wales would from tomorrow move to alert level 0. Not by any means the end of the pandemic, he said, but a chance for businesses to return to normal and rebuild.
Restrictions relaxing is going to be great for us. You know, it's going to make things a lot more easier to run, a lot more easy to manage, and puts a lot less pressure on the staff. Being in a seaside town over the last 16 months has been difficult. We opened up after the summer lockdown last year. We were rammed from day one. Staff didn't manage to go and see family, have holidays. Then we were locked down again, and then they were straight into busy season again, and it's putting a lot of pressure on people.
The latest government research says that 2 doses of the COVID vaccine cut the chance of the need for hospital treatment by 95%. So a new drive has begun to encourage young people to get vaccinated. 16 and 17-year-olds are now being invited to book their jab. Don't miss out is the message. The vaccine still points the way out of this pandemic. Geraint Vincent, News at 10.
We're all familiar with the rules on foreign travel by now, and some they've come at a significant personal expense. So hearing a minister has flown to more than 30 countries this year, including some on the red list without quarantining, has unsurprisingly sparked fresh claims of one rule for them. What's more, Alok Sharma's travels were all in the name of tackling climate change. But the government says clocking up those air miles was crucial to the success of the COP26 summit.
From Qatar to Bangladesh to Turkey and Bolivia, Alok Sharma has had quite a year so far, visiting more than 30 countries without needing to quarantine upon return. The man tasked with preparing for the COP26 summit has been jet-setting around the world, and Labour say it reeks of hypocrisy.
The climate czar effectively to not be setting a good example by flying all over the world. And by the way, another example of one rule for them and another rule for us, whether it's Dominic Cummings or Matt Hancock, not self-isolating at all when you get back, despite the fact that you're going to red zones.
A large number of the 31 countries Mr Sharma visited are on the amber list, but he also went to a handful of red list countries where anyone returning should quarantine in a government-approved hotel for 10 days. Back in March, he visited Qatar. In April, he was in the United Arab Emirates. Then in June, he spent time in Bangladesh and Turkey. And now he's in South America, where he's so far been to Bolivia and Brazil.
Alok is the COP international president, and he has a huge job signing up countries all over the world to these very, very strong commitments. And he's succeeded in, I think, about 70% of the world's GDP is now signed up to these commitments. And that can only be really achieved by these kind of really strong collaborative conversations.
Ministers doing official work are exempt from quarantine if they need to go to a red list country. But that's not the case for the rest of us, like Lynn Lotter, who has to isolate in this hotel after returning from South Africa following the death of her mother.
It makes me furious. Why should he get away with not quarantining when others who, have to? We don't have a choice.
Mr. Sharma hasn't broken any rules, but the question is, can he bat away the accusations of hypocrisy that are being thrown at him? Shihab Khan, News at 10, Westminster.
Foreign travel is, of course, a luxury not everyone can afford. For many, it's a struggle simply to pay for food and to heat their homes. So news today that energy bills are set to increase significantly for millions will therefore have been particularly unwelcome. But with wholesale costs rising, companies will be allowed to charge more, at least £139 a year more in many cases. That kicks in from October, just as the furlough scheme and universal credit uplift end. A combination which charities warn will push nearly 500,000 more families below the poverty line.
What's on it?
Anthony Lyman is a single parent with 2 children. He's one of 4 million people in the UK with a prepayment meter at his home. His bills are capped but set to rise sharply, and he's worried he'll struggle to cope.
That's a real thing that I face as a single parent, because my children have to come first, and they have to have heat, they have to have food, and they have to be able to live a comfortable and safe life.
The increase in the energy price cap will affect 15 million households. The majority on standard variable or default tariffs will see their energy bills rise by £139 a year, while those who have prepayment accounts will see an increase of £153. Ofgem says the cap needs to rise because since February, the wholesale market price of both gas and electricity has surged.
We accept this is going to put many families in difficult circumstances.
You are putting the price cap up as we head into winter and people reach for the central heating. Couldn't you have at least waited until spring?
Well, we can't ask companies to sell energy for less than they buy. The alternative to making this change would be seeing companies unable to supply the energy we need, and that is definitely an outcome that
companies would go bust if you don't do this.
Well, not only would companies go bust, they wouldn't be able to buy the energy that we need.
Not all energy companies are up against it. Centrica, which owns British Gas, EDF and Scottish Power may be losing money selling gas and electricity, but they make lots of money producing it. The price cap doesn't make allowances for this. All energy suppliers insist they will do all they can to help customers who struggle.
There's a range of things that energy companies are already doing and have put in place for this winter. Things that we can do are things like repayment plans or delayed payments. There's credit support for prepayment customers. That has been in place through the pandemic. That's continuing into the autumn.
At Citizens Advice, the calls are already coming in.
How can I help you today?
It estimates that 2 million households are already struggling to pay their energy bills and expects that number to rise.
It's a perfect storm. Already we're seeing large numbers of people experiencing great hardship, and we're really worried that come the autumn, universal credit will reduce, the fuel bills will go up and furlough will end.
Chickens winning. The timing of this is unfortunate. The cost of living generally is rising. The advice to Anthony and everyone else who's worried about energy bills is seek help, talk to your supplier, shop around and switch if you can.
So, John, I'm a bit confused because it's called a price cap, but the prices are going up yet again. So is the system actually working?
Well, the price cap was introduced 3 years ago to stop energy suppliers exploiting customers who, for whatever reason, were either unwilling or unable to switch. And Ofgem, the regulator, is clear. It has worked. But it makes the point that while it's made energy bills fairer, it cannot prevent energy bills from rising. The price we pay for gas and electricity will rise because the market price of gas and electricity has risen, and very sharply, as countries around the world have emerged from lockdown, with serious consequences, note, because higher inflation will affect every household in the UK, but it will hurt those on the lowest incomes the most. Consumers are being encouraged to shop around, save money where they can, but the government's under pressure to act too. It currently plans, of course, to make universal credit £20 a week less generous from October. It will do that, affecting 6 million families at precisely the moment they see their bills heading north. And then there's the issue of climate change. At some point in the next 10 years or so, we have to rip out gas boilers and replace them with hydrogen or heat pump technology. The government's hoping to finance that in part by lumping surcharges on customer bills. That is very hard to do when they're rising fast.
OK, John, thanks very much. A teenage mother who allowed her baby girl to starve to death while she left home for 6 days to go to a party was jailed for 9 years today. Furfi Kudi admitted the manslaughter of her daughter, Yasia, who was just 20 months old. Kudi left her home while she went to London and the West Midlands to celebrate her 18th birthday. A post-mortem decided that Yasia died from neglect. With the Taliban on the advance during fighting in Afghanistan, the United Nations envoy in the country has called on the international community to step in and prevent it descending into catastrophe. Today, the Taliban appear to take control of Zaranj, a regional capital in the south of Afghanistan, close to Helmand province. It's their biggest victory yet in a campaign which has intensified since the US withdrew most of its troops last month. Tonight, the UK Foreign Office has called on all British nationals left in the country to leave now and warned them not to rely on the embassy to evacuate them as the security situation worsens. Well, British troops are among those who, until recently, were tasked with maintaining security in Afghanistan. For many deployed to the front line, it was at times a traumatic experience. And that ordeal doesn't always stop when they come home. Some soldiers continue to deal with conditions like anxiety, depression and sleep disorders, conditions which studies suggest affect up to half of combat veterans. Which is something we found when speaking to former members of C Company 3 Para for the latest in our series, Afghanistan, Photo from the Front Line.
There are images that will stay with me forever.
Everyone that went to that country, they brought Afghanistan back with them, and I think left a bit of themselves over there as well.
East Sussex might be a world away from Afghanistan, but Nick Quinton is one of those who freely admits he carries with him the things he saw and experienced during his time with 3 Para in Helmand province. In particular, the faces of the innocents caught up in a deadly conflict.
Women and children were killed through the actions that we'd taken as a force, and everyone knows that happens, but to see it is a completely different ball game. And you know, to see kids and things, you struggle to comprehend it, and you struggle to come to terms with the reality of the situation that you're in.
Now a performance coach and paramedic in Brighton, he's not surprised so many former comrades are struggling with their mental health.
You can't prepare in any way to look in the eyes of a mother who's just lost her child to actions that have been taken by your force, the side that you're on, whether you're directly involved or not. And those are the incidents that guys, when they come back, have real problems with and struggle to overcome.
Evan Davis says he's in a better place now, able to enjoy life as a musician and electrical engineer in Bristol. But his time with 3 Para in Helmand almost cost him his life and left deep mental scars.
There were so many close calls with, rounds coming, ridiculously close to my head, RPGs, bombs. It was a constant ordeal, and it was on my mind all the time, when is my time up?
On returning to the UK, the Afghan experience and a family loss combined. His response, heavy drinking and an attempt to take his own life.
Bought loads of pills, and decided then I was going to go back to my room, eat all these pills, down some vodka, go to sleep, and be done with it. Yeah, I did it. But then just a few minutes later, I started thinking, you know, I've made a mistake here. So I had to phone one of my friends, chucked me in his van, speeded me up to the hospital to get them to sort me out. But even then, I wasn't really able to discuss why I did it or how I was feeling, what brought me to that point.
The impact of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, on those who experience combat is now better understood, and it's just one of several conditions affecting the mental health of veterans of the Afghan campaign. Major Paul Blair commanded C Company of the Parachute Regiment through some of its toughest times in Helmand Province when men under his command died.
It manifested itself in a number of ways, and it took its toll.
It was only after returning to the UK at a reunion with fellow paras he began to appreciate the scale of those hidden wounds.
And someone was brave enough to ask a question, is everyone okay? Anyone, you know, suffering any issues or got any problems? And I only did one tour of Afghanistan. Some of those guys did subsequent tours. But to a man, everyone around the table said, yeah, you know, in some shape or form, I'm dealing with a few demons.
It was very different in 2006. There were smiles when the paras arrived in Afghanistan, many looking forward to the adventure. Now its memory is something they have to live and deal with.
Everyone that went to that country, yeah, they brought Afghanistan back with them, and I think left a bit of themselves over there as well.
Veterans talking to our correspondent Paul Davis. There's more on our series online at itv.com/photo from the front line, where you can also find details of how to get help if you're affected by any of the issues discussed. Not so long ago, COVID vaccination rates in the United States were some of the most impressive in the world. That progress has been slowed by scepticism about the vaccine, driving what President Biden today called a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Across the US, 50% of citizens are fully vaccinated, with 58% having had at least one dose. The states with the highest uptake are in the northeast, like Vermont, Massachusetts and Maine, where more than 60% are fully vaccinated. But in some states, particularly in the south, that rate falls to less than 40%, including in Alabama and Mississippi. People's politics seem to be influential. Democratic states, seen here in blue, are more likely to have high vaccination rates compared to those that voted Republican in the last election. And vaccine scepticism is thought to be partly to blame for the rapid spread of the Delta variant, with daily COVID cases rising to a 6-month high.
Of course they celebrated. The Milwaukee Bucks had just won the major basketball championship for the first time in 50 years. But 2 weeks on, at least 500 fans now have COVID. This night is now being seen both as a moment of sporting success and public health failure.
I'm that little boy's hero.
Right across America, there are rising rates and growing regrets.
I was strongly against getting the vaccine just because we're a strong conservative family.
But the viral videos of the unvaccinated tell only part of the story. Because one of the biggest outbreaks is in Florida, where the governor himself has opposed further lockdowns, becoming a vocal critic of President Biden.
Why don't you do your job? Why don't you get this border secure? And until you do that, I don't want to hear a blip about COVID from you. Thank you.
America's leaders are not only struggling with the pandemic itself, but they're struggling with how to make it simply an issue of life and death. Not left versus right, not Washington versus the southern states. Its pandemic response was once the envy of the world, not anymore.
Done. Good job. Perfect.
In Baltimore,
Think about the ocean. You want to look away? I'm in.
it's 300,000 down, 173,000 to go. Even with a fourth wave incoming, getting its population vaccinated is not the sprint it should be. As we saw, the queues aren't long enough, but you don't have to go far to see how lies about the vaccine are being believed and repeated.
Me as a woman, if I want to have a child and I have this vaccine, the chances of me being infertile is like a 50-50 balanced scale, and then I'm black as well, so we all have to deal with, like, there's so much different levels of this vaccine that we really don't know still, and I would rather not be a guinea pig.
My son said, Mom, you won't get that vaccination.
Down the road, as lockdown locks are trimmed, customers get more than just a haircut. Dina has been trained to promote the vaccinations to her customers.
Giving a choice is all I can really do.
This might seem like an unlikely place to promote the jabs, but the authorities called on her when they needed a new route to appeal to the unwilling, particularly African Americans.
People of color have been tested on, and there's a history of that, and there's a fear there.
But it's in the South, where vaccination rates are low and the consequences clear. Case numbers rising and fast. Rohit Katru, News at 10 in the United States.
Wildfires are continuing to burn across Greece tonight, including a huge fire near the capital, Athens. People have been forced to leave their homes as the flames have spread, destroying everything in their path. On Friday, a man was killed by a falling electricity pylon in one of the fires near the capital, and at least 20 people have been injured. It's thought that more than 50 fires are burning across the country. Greece has been baking in temperatures of up to 45 degrees Celsius during its most protracted heat wave in 3 decades. Here, and linked with a big money move to Manchester City, England captain Harry Kane has denied refusing to return to training for Tottenham. The striker had been expected to show up for pre-season tests on Monday, but has now said he'll be back tomorrow. Kane said he had been hurt by comments questioning his professionalism. City boss Pep Guardiola today said he would be interested in signing the 28-year-old if Spurs are willing to negotiate. Yesterday, Kane's England teammate Jack Grealish signed for City for a British record fee of £100 million. Finally tonight, there's surely nothing cancer patients long for more than being given the all clear. Well, for Mark Howell, that happiest of news came after he underwent surgery using a state-of-the-art robot 5 years ago. He was the first to receive the treatment in the UK, and the technology has since been used to save lives all around the world.
Years now since you operated.
It is a moment only very few of us could even imagine. News of test results for cancer.
And I can confirm to you that none of them have shown any evidence of any recurrent disease.
Fantastic.
You're completely cancer-free from that perspective.
That's great news.
Nothing at all that we've seen since the time of original surgery, actually.
Lost for words, and 5 years after undergoing pioneering cancer treatment at the Royal Marsden in London, Mark is now completely cancer-free.
It's what everybody wants to hear, and to actually sit here and hear that news, yeah, I'm shocked, and it takes a while for it to sink in, but absolutely fantastic, brilliant news, yeah, unbelievable, fantastic, yeah.
Now I can feel your joy. I'm so pleased.
So relieved. Yeah.
This is the octopus-like robot that Mark's surgeon used to operate on his esophageal cancer. He was the first such patient in the UK to be treated with it.
Let us have a look lower down towards the heart and the aorta.
Mr. Chowdhury controls the mechanised instruments from the corner of the room. He gets a three-dimensional view inside the patient's body, allowing for the most accurate surgery ever performed.
What's amazing is just how immersive that process is, because I can actually zoom in and get closer and closer to the structures that I want to dissect and apply very controlled levels of energy to achieve the best for the patient without harming the tissues that surround the area.
So successful has the technology been, he now trains surgeons around the world to use it. When Aileen Rogers was at medical school 15 years ago, robotic surgery was beyond the realms of possibility. Now it's actually saving lives.
We can now make things achievable which were never achievable before, remove things or fix things that were never achievable before. And the precision of this allows us to do it in such a way that the patients have better outcomes, less blood loss, less length of stay, and a faster return to work.
Yes! Telling his wife he is now cured of cancer was a dream for Mark. Groundbreaking technology made it a reality. Emily Morgan, News at 10.
Oh, that's it from us for tonight. So for me and the rest of the team, do have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Night, night.